Good morning. It's Reverend Mike Caper from the First Presbyterian Church of Troy. We're in our third sermon in the series on David from the Old Testament. As a young man, David was anointed by Samuel, slew the giant Goliath, and got a job playing his harp for King Saul. He also gained a reputation as a formidable warrior. Saul went crazy, tried to kill him. David fled, is now a fugitive. He wasn't alone. He has other men following him at this time. He's been dodging around the countryside and evading Saul's forces for about 6-7 years. It's getting old. They are hungry and tired, sleeping in caves or out on open ground. It's a hard life. All I can say is that we do not find him at his best in this story. Indeed, you will see he is on the edge of giving into his temper and doing something terrible. He's probably in his mid to late 20s as we begin this story from 1 Samuel 25. I'm going to be reading and commenting on the text. Now Samuel died, and all Israel assembled and mourned for him, and they buried him at his home in Ramah. Then David moved down into the desert of Paran. A certain man in Moab who had property there was very wealthy. He had 1,000 goats and 3,000 sheep, which he was shearing in Carmel. That's an impressive amount of livestock, which is mostly how they measured wealth in those days. His name was Nabal. His name means fool, but I'm going to call him idiot in this reading because it rolls off the tongue better. And his wife's name was Abigail. Abigail means father's joy, by the way. The text tells us that she was an intelligent and beautiful woman, but that her husband was surly and mean in his dealings. Perhaps there are a few Downton Abbey fans out there. There's no giant mansion in this story, but there is Lord Idiot, his wife Lady Abigail, a collection of servants, and a host of tenant farmers and herders. Verse 4. While David was in the wilderness with his 600 followers, he heard that Idiot was shearing sheep. So he sent 10 young men and said to them, "Go up to Idiot at Carmel and greet him in my name. Say to him, 'Long life to you, good health to you and your household, and good health to all that is yours. I hear that it is sheep shearing time. When your shepherds were with us, we did not mistreat them, and the whole time they were at Carmel, nothing of theirs went missing. Ask your servants, and they will tell you. Therefore, be favorable toward my men, since we come at a festive time. Please give your servants and your son David whatever you can find for them.' When David's men arrived, they gave Idiot this message in David's name. Then they waited." Let's take a moment and consider Idiot's position. He is under no obligation to give anything away. To use modern language, he has the right to manage his private property, and no one else has the right to deprive him of it. Based on this thinking, he gives his answers. Verse 10. Idiot answered David's servants, "Who is this David? Who is this son of Jesse? Many servants are breaking away from their masters these days. Why should I take my bread and water and the meat I have slaughtered for my shearers and give it to men coming from who knows where?" I will mention that it isn't always wise to assert one's rights. Sometimes it might be better to be generous and open-handed. Observe what happens next. David's men turned around and went back. When they arrived, they reported every word. David said to his men, "Each of you strap on a sword." And so they did, and David strapped on his as well. About 400 men went up with David, while 200 stayed behind with the supplies. Now remember those servants I spoke of? One of them goes to have a respectful and urgent word with Lady Abigail. Verse 14, one of the servants told Abigail, Idiot's wife, "David sent messengers from the wilderness to give our master his greetings. But our master hurled insults at them. Yet these men were very good to us. They did not mistreat us, and the whole time we were out in the fields near them, nothing was missing. Night and day, they were a wall around us the whole time we were herding our sheep near them. Now think it over and see what you can do, because disaster is hanging over our master and his whole household. He is such a wicked man that no one can talk to him." Abigail acted quickly. She took 200 loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 dressed sheep, 5 seahs of roasted grain, 100 cakes of raisins, and 200 cakes of pressed figs, and loaded them on donkeys. Then she told her servants, "Go on ahead, I'll follow you." But she did not tell her husband, "Idiot." Now we come to the climax of their story. Abigail is riding her donkey up the ravine. David and his 400 armed young men are descending, and they meet. Here is what David has just said to his men. "It's been useless, all my watching over this fellow's property in the wilderness so that nothing of his was missing. He has paid me back evil for good. May God deal with David, be it ever so severely, if by morning I leave one alive male down there." In other words, he's planning a vengeful massacre in his outrage. When Abigail saw David, she quickly got off her donkey and bowed down before David with her face to the ground. She fell at his feet and said, "Pardon your servant, my lord, and let me speak to you. Hear what your servant has to say. Pay no attention to my lord, to that wicked man, idiot. He is just like his name. His name means fool, and folly goes with him. And as for me," said Abigail, "your servant, I did not see the man my lord sent." Can you feel the tension here? Abigail continues, "As surely as the Lord your God lives, and as you live, David, since the Lord has kept you from bloodshed and from avenging yourself with your own hands, may your enemies and all who are intent on harming my Lord be like a fool, like my husband idiot. And let this gift, which your servant has brought, be given to the men who follow you." She's really buttering him up and assuming he's going to do the right thing. She is simply brilliant at de-escalating the situation. She continues, verse 28. "Please forgive your servant's presumption. The Lord your God will certainly make a lasting dynasty for my Lord, because you fight the Lord's battles, and no wrongdoing will be found in you as long as you live. Even though someone is pursuing you to take your life, the life of my Lord will be bound securely in the bundle of the living by the Lord your God. But the lives of your enemies he will hurl away as from the pocket of a sling. When the Lord has fulfilled for my Lord," she calls David her Lord, but the Lord is God. Anyways, "when the Lord has fulfilled for my Lord every good thing he promised concerning him and has appointed him ruler over Israel, my Lord will not have on his conscience the staggering burden of needless bloodshed or of having avenged himself. And when the Lord your God has brought my Lord success, remember your servant," meaning her, Abigail. Verse 32, David said to Abigail, "Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, who has sent you to meet me today. May you be blessed for your good judgment and for keeping me from bloodshed this day and from avenging myself with my own hands. Otherwise, as surely as the Lord, the God of Israel lives, who kept me from harming you, if you had not come quickly to meet me, not one male belonging to idiot would have been left alive by daybreak." David accepted from her hand what she had brought him and said, "Go home in peace. I have heard your words and granted your request." Whew. When Abigail went to idiot, he was in the house holding a banquet like that of a king. He was in high spirits and very drunk. So she told him nothing at all until daybreak. Then in the morning, when idiot was sober, his wife told him all these things, and his heart failed him, and he became like a stone. About 10 days later, the Lord struck idiot, and he died. Verse 39. When David heard that idiot was dead, he said, "Praise be to the Lord, who has upheld my cause against idiot for treating me with contempt. He has kept his servant from doing wrong, and has brought idiot's wrongdoing down on his own head." Then David sent word to Abigail, asking her to become his wife. His servants went to Carmel and said to Abigail, "David has sent us to you to take you to become his wife." She bowed down with her face to the ground and said, I am your servant, and am ready to serve you and wash the feet of my Lord's servants. Abigail quickly got on a donkey and, attended by her 5 female servants, went with David's messengers and became his second wife. End of chapter. I now have something of an epilogue. Some decades ago, a scholar named David Tracy wrote a book called The Analogical Imagination, in which he said we should look at the situations people in the Bible were dealing with and how they handled them, and then consider how to apply lessons from their experience to our time. As I consider the story of David the fugitive, Nabal the idiot, and Abigail, his wise wife, I can't help but making a comparison to a modern situation, the tragic killing of Renee Good by ICE agents in Minneapolis on January 7th. I have neither the information nor the wisdom to render a judgment about that situation or what consequences should come from it for those involved. But I do offer the following analog for your consideration and prayer. Agent Jonathan Ross, who's about 43 years old, is somewhat comparable to David. He is armed. David is armed. He has had training. So is David. Being armed and trained gives you power. So both Ross and David had power in their respective situations. Both Ross and David were in stressful situations. King Saul is trying to kill David. He's a fugitive. ICE is quite unpopular in some circles these days. I read that Agent Ross was dragged about 100 yards by a vehicle in an operation last year. That must have been terrible. Let's be charitable and assume that neither David nor Agent Ross really wanted to kill anyone. Renee Good, age 37, is perhaps a little comparable to Nabal. She was in her car near a peaceful protest when a truck pulled up and Ms. Good found her vehicle surrounded by armed agents. Remember what I said about how being armed gives you power? I think it fair to say that in those last moments, Ms. Good acted unwisely. I do not believe she had any intent to injure or threaten any of the agents, but she decided to drive away instead of obeying an instruction given by one of them, and a decision that has resulted in her untimely death. The character from 1 Samuel 25 who's missing from this comparison is Abigail. She saw disaster coming from the clash between her husband and David. She acted decisively and swiftly to de-escalate the situation and prevent violence. How I wish someone had been present on that Minneapolis street who had the awareness, skill, and power to prevent this tragic shooting. Blessed are the peacemakers. One would think that our governmental authorities would do their best to backfill this role, to assure people of a complete and thorough investigation which will follow evidence of wrongdoing if any is found. If Abigail was a politician, no doubt that is how she would handle it. She would ask people not to rush to judgment. Instead, the opposite has happened. Instead of our government assuring us of an impartial investigation, some of the highest elected officials in our land branded Miss Good a terrorist within hours of the incident. How are her spouse and children supposed to grieve their loss when the children's mother has slanderously been labeled as a terrorist? Indeed, more recent news would indicate that the Department of Justice is attempting to investigate Miss Good's spouse for wrongdoing. About 10 officials who have consciences have resigned to protest this outrageous policy. And how is Jonathan Ross supposed to come to terms with what he did in this kind of charged political environment? No doubt lawyers are cautioning him against making public statements or offering condolences to Ms. Good's family. How can anyone, from us to the people who were there, come to terms with this tragedy as tragedy? A senseless, useless killing due to bad choices and panic in the heat of the moment should result in nothing but tears on all sides. How quick we are to separate ourselves into either-or camps, self-righteously loving one side in this event and hating the other. Personally, I'm doing my best just to be sad. I repeat my original disclaimer. The book I mentioned has the title, The Analogical Imagination. and I've shared with you how I have come to imagine the incident as I have reflected on 1 Samuel 25. Any resemblance on my part to the actual Jonathan Ross or Renee Good is mostly just dumb luck. But I really am doing my best to be more sad than angry about it, to not rush to judgment, and to name it as pure tragedy. May God bless you in your own reflections. Amen.